You awake, not fully. The world around you hums softly, unaware of your eyes. Outside, a tree bends against the indifferent wind. Its branches scrape the grey sky, scratching for something they will never find. You wonder, briefly, if you have ever truly seen it, or merely imagined the shape you wanted it to have. The same is true of yourself. Do you remember the last time you felt alive? Not the shallow pulse of distraction, the fleeting warmth of a laugh, or the hollow pride of accomplishment, but truly alive? Or have you spent your life in shadows, mistaking movement for meaning, noise for presence? Every day, the sun rises and sets, indifferent to your desires, your regrets, your hidden griefs. And yet, you pretend, because to notice is unbearable. You carry a weight you cannot name. It is neither shame nor guilt, though it tastes faintly of both. It is simply the slow, unyielding realization that life demands from you something you cannot deliver. Permanence, satisfaction, certainty. You chase it nonetheless, like a moth drawn to a dying flame. The illusions come in many forms. You call them progress, ambition, love, connection, pleasure. Each of them promises a sweetness that dissolves the instant you reach for it. And still, you chase. Every human being is caught in this mechanical hunger, the ceaseless pull of the will, like a clock that beats endlessly, without rhythm, without pause. Do you feel it now? The subtle tug of wanting, even as your mind whispers that all desire is suffering? There is a truth so simple it terrifies. Everything you chase will slip through your fingers. Your achievements crumble, your relationships fade, your beauty withers, your health decays, and all the while the world continues, as if you had never been. You are a brief flicker, a sigh of wind through an indifferent forest. And yet you still believe you are the one in control. Pause for a moment and breathe. Listen, there is a silence underneath everything, a vast, patient silence that neither judges nor consoles. It does not offer hope, nor does it demand despair. It merely exists, and if you can, for a fleeting instant, step into it, you will notice something remarkable. The pressure eases, not because anything has changed, but because you have stopped struggling against reality. Here is your first release, the paradox of seeing clearly. You are insignificant, and yet everything that matters to you, your fear, your longing, your private pain, is as real as the air that presses against your skin. You exist, and yet you do not. You suffer, and yet the suffering is not yours alone. It is the inheritance of every living being, stretching back through a chain of beings you will never meet and forward to those who will inherit the same silent burden. Now look again at the tree. Notice how it bends, and yet does not complain. Notice how the wind reshapes it without asking permission. You are like that tree, molded by forces far greater than yourself, resilient, fragile, inevitable. And yet, you continue to imagine that you can bend the world to your liking, that your suffering is unique, that your small victories mean anything in the vast unfolding of time. Another release, softer this time. You do not need to answer these questions. You do not need to understand them. Their weight is not yours alone, and by noticing them, by letting them sit quietly in your chest, you begin to glimpse what it means to live without illusion. The mind will resist. It will whisper stories of control, of meaning, of justice. It will say, you can still change things, you can still fix this, and you will feel the tension between that whisper and the cold truth pressing against your ribs. Nothing lasts, nothing can be held. Everything you call yours is borrowed, and the debt is due the instant you forget it. You may feel fear now, a tightness, a faint panic. Let it rise, let it pass. This is the first taste of lucidity, the ability to watch suffering, to let it flow through you without pretending, without flinching. You are a witness, a quiet observer of a world that neither loves nor hates you. And in that witnessing, in that merciless attention, you find a strange, fleeting light, not joy, not hope, but clarity. Imagine the wind again. It moves through the branches, over the earth, through streets filled with people who, like you, clutch illusions. Some call it love, some call it success, some call it happiness. None of it lasts. And still, life continues. And still, you must continue. And here, for the last time in this opening segment, a final release. Your suffering is inevitable, but it is not unique. Your desire to escape it is natural, but it is futile. And yet, in recognizing this, you are not diminished. You are awake. For now, that is enough. The world waits, unknowing. You wait, unblinking. And somewhere, deep within the endless pattern of shadow and light, the first stirrings of understanding quietly flicker, like a candle held against a dark, patient night. You have noticed the flicker of awareness, that faint candle against the darkness, and perhaps you hope it will illuminate something more than the truth of your own futility. But desire waits, patient, relentless. It does not ask permission. It does not care whether you understand or resist. It is a drumbeat beneath your skin, an invisible pulse that demands motion, consumption, acquisition, and yet never satisfaction. Look around you. Every object you covet, every achievement you cling to, every intimate connection you call love is a testament to this insatiable force. You reach for a thing, and when it is finally within your grasp, the moment passes, leaving nothing but an echo of expectation unfulfilled. You have felt it, you have tasted it, yet still you chase. Perhaps this is the cruelest jest of existence. The very act of reaching ensures the void remains. You are taught, subtly, persistently, that desire is virtuous. Pursue your dreams, achieve, strive, and so you do. You work, you sacrifice, you negotiate your own life, imagining that fulfillment will arrive at the end of the journey. But the journey itself is the trap. The will, the eternal, ungraspable hunger, is the silent architect of your suffering. And each fleeting satisfaction, each ephemeral triumph, is merely a reprieve before the wheel turns again, grinding you against the inevitable. And yet, in this relentless cycle, there is a perverse beauty. Observe it closely. The will does not hate you. It does not judge you. It simply is. It manifests in your hunger, your longing, your ambition, as it manifests in the wind that carves mountains and the tides that sculpt cliffs. It is impartial, eternal, and unmoved by your illusions of control. Your suffering is not punishment, it is the natural vibration of existence, and you cannot avoid it without ceasing to exist. Here is your first release of this segment. A quiet paradox. You are tormented because you live, and you live because you are tormented. The very thing that destroys you is the proof of your existence. As if the universe whispers that to be is to suffer, and to suffer is to know that you are. And still, the temptation is strong to imagine an escape, to seek solace in achievement, in recognition, in the shallow gratifications offered by the world. All of them will betray you. All of them will leave the hollow echo where your heart longs to rest. You have noticed, perhaps, that this world is not kind to the subtle. It is loud. It is distracted. It is obsessed with the superficial. The social constructs you inhabit the networks of praise, prestige, and validation function as anesthetics, smoothing the jagged edges of awareness with a dull, persistent hum. You are told what to want, how to want it, when to want it. The world has trained you to chase shadows with the fervor of a devotee, promising warmth that never arrives. And you obey because rebellion is heavier than conformity. Because the mind cannot resist the drumbeat of desire. Yet you sense in quiet moments that all this striving is absurd. The very things that consume you, the titles, the wealth, the recognition, are the very chains that bind your soul. You see them momentarily, and a faint dissonance rises. A feeling that perhaps life is a theater in which you are both actor and audience, performing a script written by a will you cannot control. And in this recognition, the weight of absurdity presses against your ribs, and you feel both the terror and the relief of clarity. You may try to distract yourself. Perhaps you have already reached for a glass, a screen, a voice, anything to smooth the edges of this realization. But the distraction is fragile, a paper bridge over the abyss. And the abyss waits patiently, infinite and unyielding. You see it in the quiet spaces between your thoughts, in the pause before sleep, in the hollow echo after laughter. It does not speak, it does not threaten, it simply waits, and you know, even if you try to forget, that it is the only reality beneath the illusions you have built. Another release, more tender this time. Consider the simplicity of a flame. It burns, it illuminates, it dies. Nothing remains, yet for the instant of its existence, it is wholly itself. Your desires flare and die in the same way. And if you watch them without attachment, without clinging, there is a strange clarity. Not joy, not consolation, but lucidity. The will pulses through you, and you feel it, and yet you are not consumed. You are witness. You have reached this point, perhaps reluctantly, and yet you cannot turn away. Desire is not a problem to be solved. It is the very structure of existence. To resist it completely is to resist life itself. And so you watch, with a tremor of awe and despair, as the machinery grinds on. You see yourself as both cog and observer, spinning in a wheel that will never pause, yet strangely beautiful in its relentless precision. There is no escape from this truth. Every human being is a servant to the same endless hunger. Civilization is nothing but the outward expression of this inner torment. Cities rise and fall, empires conquer and crumble, technologies advance and decay, all of it driven by the same invisible force that gnaws at your insides. And still, each generation imagines it can outrun the pattern, that its desires are somehow unique, that its pain is unprecedented. It is not. Here, pause again. Let your chest rise and fall with the recognition of your insignificance. Let the mind tremble at the immensity of the machinery, and then, for the first time in this segment, release. The paradox is simple yet profound. Your suffering is inevitable, and yet, in recognizing it, you are alive in a way the unaware never can be. You feel the rhythm of the will in your own pulse. You feel the weight of existence pressing against you, and in that pressure, something strange occurs. You are conscious. Now look around, if you can. Imagine the wind, the streets, the millions of lives moving in the same pattern you inhabit. Desire drives them all, relentless and impartial. You are not alone, though the isolation feels infinite. And yet, in witnessing the pattern, you touch a fragment of truth, that life is suffering, that the will is unceasing, and that nothing you do will change the machinery of the world. And here, the release softens into poetry. The world spins, indifferent, as it always has, as it always will. You are a single note in a symphony too vast to hear, yet in the note lies the entirety of your experience, brief and brilliant, and entirely consumed by forces beyond your control. The machinery of desire moves on, and you, for a moment, simply observe, not with hope, not with fear, but with quiet lucidity. And that, in this world, is something. Not salvation, not release, not triumph, but something real, sharp, and undeniable. The world does not pause. You may imagine, briefly, that in your suffering, you are unique. That the particular arrangement of your pain is something personal, secret, shielded. Yet look closer. Every gesture, every sigh, every heartbeat of grief is mirrored in countless forms across time and space. The river of existence flows, carrying with it the silent lament of innumerable lives. You are a droplet in this vast current, and to resist it is to struggle against water itself. The notion of escape is a trivial lie whispered by the mind, hoping for respite where none exists. Even now, the pulse of life thrums inescapably beneath your ribs. You feel it in the subtle tension of muscles that ache without reason, in the hollow pangs of yearning that rise without purpose, in the quiet despair that settles behind the eyes. It is not personal, yet it feels intimate, as if the universe has chosen you to bear witness to its indifferent truth. The air carries the faint hum of inevitability. All that arises will fall. All that is created will dissolve. All that is loved will fade. And yet, life presses on. Observe how small the triumphs appear when measured against the vast horizon of reality. The career achieved, the accolades received, the fleeting embrace of intimacy. All are dust against the relentless tides of time. Every moment of satisfaction is transient, fragile, and destined to vanish. The mind recoils from this, conjuring illusions to soften the blow. I am special. My story matters. My suffering is unique. But these are fragile constructs, the last desperate artifacts of a consciousness unwilling to accept its own impermanence. And here comes the first soft release of this segment. To see all this without resistance is a strange relief. Not joy, not hope, not consolation, but relief nonetheless. The release does not erase the pain. It simply allows you to feel it without fighting, to notice the futility of struggle without despairing. There is a subtle elegance in recognizing that the machinery of life is impartial, that the will moves without intent, and that your suffering is both meaningless and essential. The mind, in its cleverness, attempts to distract you. It invents narratives, connections, fantasies of triumph and escape, the promise of meaning where none resides. It presents stories of justice, love, morality, and progress, all to mask the naked, unyielding fact. Life is indifferent, and all striving is transient. You feel this acutely when you are alone, in the quiet hours, when nothing demands your attention, when your gaze falls upon the world with unfiltered clarity. The silence of these moments is merciless, yet in it lies a sharp, crystalline lucidity. The realization that all forms of attachment are temporary, all desires are fleeting, and the only constant is the unceasing pulse of existence itself. Pause here and breathe. Feel the tension in your chest loosen, if only slightly. This is your second release. The awareness itself is a small mercy. There is no remedy, no solution, no triumph to grasp. There is only observation, patient, unflinching, and intimate. To notice the pattern without judgment is to step briefly outside the machinery of suffering, to watch it from a distance, and to feel the faint echo of freedom, not from the world, but from illusion. The passage of time offers another truth, harsher and yet strangely liberating. Nothing belongs to you. Your body, your mind, your experiences, your relationships, your achievements, they are all temporary visitors in the theater of life. You may cling to them, celebrate them, fear their loss, but ultimately they vanish, leaving only the quiet residue of memory and sensation. And in this vanishing, if you are awake, you perceive the delicate, tragic beauty of existence, fleeting, ephemeral, indifferent, yet entirely real. You may resist this understanding. You may clutch at the remnants of hope, the fleeting gratifications, the social constructs that promise permanence, but they are fragile scaffolds over an abyss that waits with infinite patience. Every pleasure, every attachment, every fleeting triumph is a whisper against the vast, unyielding silence of the world. And yet, the paradox is simple. To see this clearly is to touch something more profound than hope, more enduring than fear. It is to encounter existence in its unadorned, unfiltered form. Here is the third release of this segment, subtle and quiet. In recognizing the transience of all things, you glimpse the faint liberation of detachment. Not indifference, not apathy, not the annihilation of sensation, but the serene acknowledgement that suffering is the natural consequence of existence, that desire is the engine of all motion, and that to cling is to suffer unnecessarily. This awareness does not comfort, but it sharpens perception, leaving you more alive to the rhythm of being, more awake to the patterns of reality, more intimate with the truth that all things rise and fall without pause or preference. Consider the rhythm of the seasons, the turning of the earth, the pulse of the ocean. Nothing persists in stasis. The trees shed their leaves, the waves crash and recede, the stars blaze briefly before their light fades into eternity. Your life mirrors this rhythm, and yet you are taught to resist it, to imagine permanence in impermanent forms. The machinery of society reinforces this illusion. Work, ambition, accumulation, competition, all designed to distract from the quiet truth that nothing can be held, nothing can last, and all striving is ultimately for naught. And still, you must live. And still, the machinery hums beneath your skin, urging you forward, pulling you towards satisfaction you cannot attain. There is a strange poetry in this inevitability. The will does not care for your desires, yet it grants you the experience of desiring. It is merciless and impartial, indifferent and inexhaustible. You are not punished. You are participating in the eternal motion of existence. The suffering is inevitable, the desire unavoidable. Yet in witnessing this, You are granted a brief, fleeting lucidity, a fragment of truth that pierces the comforting veils of illusion. Another release arrives, more luminous now, the recognition that pain is not your enemy. It is the instrument by which you perceive reality. It is the lens through which the machinery of life becomes visible. The lens that allows you to distinguish the transient from the eternal, the ephemeral from the essential. You feel it now, sharp, insistent, and unyielding. Yet in its precision lies clarity, not solace, not joy, not consolation, but truth, raw and undeniable. Now, you may observe your own patterns of thought, the habitual loops in which the mind entangles itself. Notice the compulsive turning over of regrets, the anticipatory dread of future suffering, the ceaseless cataloging of desires unmet. These are not mistakes, they are natural manifestations of the will, echoes of the machinery that drives existence. And if you can watch them without attachment, without intervention, you begin to sense a subtle liberation, the ability to witness desire and suffering without being wholly consumed by them. The world continues, unmindful, unjudging. The wind carries dust across fields, across cities, across oceans. Every human heartbeat, every breath, every sigh, every act of striving, every moment of despair, every flicker of fleeting joy, all are absorbed into the vast, indifferent continuum. And you are part of it, both observer and participant, fragile and inevitable, momentary and eternal in the same instant. Here, the fourth release. A slow, patient acknowledgement of impermanence. You are not required to act, to change, to triumph. You are permitted only to observe, to notice, to feel the machinery without illusion. And in this witnessing, a peculiar calm arises. Not triumph, not mastery, not escape, but the faintest glimmer of understanding. The machinery does not falter, it does not pause, it moves on, and you move with it, attuned, lucid, present, awake to the rhythm of reality. Consider the quiet spaces between events, the empty moments when nothing occurs yet everything is felt. They are the intervals in which the machinery is exposed, the moments in which you may glimpse the raw structure of existence. Here, suffering is unadorned, desire is unmasked, and the impermanence of all things is visible without distraction. To inhabit these spaces fully is to taste a fragment of liberation, the ability to feel without clinging, to witness without interference, to exist without illusion. And still, the mind resists. It whispers, cajoles, invents, distracts. It conjures narratives of justice, morality, destiny, meaning constructs designed to soften the weight of existence. And yet, in the moments when you can silence the whisper, when the machinery hums beneath your awareness without the mind's commentary, you touch a strange, fleeting serenity, the unvarnished truth of life. As it is, impartial, relentless, luminous in its indifference. The release deepens, subtle, luminous, like a candle held in an empty cathedral. The realization arises. Suffering is inevitable, desire is unceasing, the world is indifferent. And yet you are awake in the midst of motion, awake in the heart of impermanence, awake in the machinery of existence. This awakening is neither comfort nor triumph. It is a profound, patient lucidity, a recognition of reality stripped of illusion, a quiet acceptance of what is. You have walked long enough in the corridors of longing to feel the emptiness that pulses behind the gestures of life. Every striving, every pursuit, every fleeting embrace of satisfaction reveals itself now as a shadow play. You see the actors, yourself included, moving with precision and inevitability, performing scripts written by a will older than memory, a will that cares nothing for your joys, your griefs, your illusions of significance. And in seeing this, there is a subtle tremor, a mixture of terror and awe, despair and lucidity. Notice how the self clings. It holds to memories as though they were anchors in a storm. It clings to identity as though permanence were possible. It clings to belief as though the world could be bent to its desires. And yet, these clutches are fragile, artificial, desperate. Each attachment is a tether to suffering, each expectation a brushstroke on the canvas of inevitable loss. The self is a construction, and the construction trembles under the weight of its own impermanence. Pause and feel this. The very act of clinging is what intensifies suffering. Desire seeks to fill the void, but the void cannot be filled. It is not a flaw, it is the structure of existence itself. The machinery of life moves, impartial, unending, and the pulse of the will drives everything toward motion and decay. To understand this is to feel a quiet collapse of the illusions that have guided you, an imperceptible unraveling that leaves only the raw, unvarnished experience of being. Here, your first release of this segment arrives. A gentle, paradoxical clarity. The self is not permanent, the world is not benevolent, and yet the recognition of this truth is a fleeting liberation. Not joy, not consolation, not reprieve, but a kind of lucidity so sharp that it feels almost like pain. And in this pain, there is awareness, and in awareness, there is the first faint brush of freedom. The freedom that comes not from changing the world or the self, but from seeing them as they are. Consider the quiet rhythm of suffering itself. It comes in waves, unbidden, in the subtle dissonances of thought, in the hollow pangs of longing, in the delicate ache of awareness. It rises and falls, momentary and eternal, precise and indifferent. To observe it without resistance is a rare grace. Not mastery, not transcendence, not solace, but the ability to feel the pulse of life without the constant interference of illusion. To witness the machinery without pretending to control it. The mind will resist this observation. It will whisper, coax, distract, insist on narrative, on purpose, on meaning where none exists. It will demand that you justify suffering, assign blame, construct significance. But all constructions are fragile. They are paper bridges over the abyss. The abyss waits patiently, infinite, unyielding, unmoved. And when you stop building, when you stop clinging, you touch the edge of reality in a way both terrifying and luminous. Another release comes, subtle, like the faint exhalation of a candle in an empty room. The paradox is clear. To let go is not to abandon, not to retreat, not to surrender hope. It is simply to witness, to inhabit the space between desire and fulfillment, between action and consequence, between self and world. And in this witnessing, there is the faintest glimmer of liberation, the understanding that suffering is not punishment, desire is not a flaw, and existence is neither cruel nor kind. It simply is. You may look outward at the patterns of human life, the cities, the empires, the societies, the endless cycles of creation and destruction. Everything repeats endlessly with relentless precision. You may look inward at the mind's compulsions, the cravings, the regrets, the anticipations of pain yet to come. Everything repeats endlessly with relentless precision. The machinery does not pause, it does not falter, it does not care. And you, brief and fragile, are caught in its motion. And yet, in noticing this, in fully perceiving it without judgment or denial, you touch a fragment of clarity that is sharper than hope, deeper than despair. Here comes the third release. Imagine the quiet spaces between events, those hollow moments where nothing occurs, yet everything is felt. They are the intervals in which the machinery of life is most exposed, where suffering, desire, and impermanence are visible without distraction. To inhabit these spaces is to taste the fleeting liberation, the ability to witness the pulse of existence without being consumed by it, the ability to see the self and the world clearly, if only for a moment, without illusion. The machinery of life continues, relentless. Desire pulses in your veins, suffering rises and falls, the world moves in cycles beyond comprehension. And yet, if you observe without interference, you begin to perceive the subtle, almost imperceptible rhythm underlying all motion, the ebb and flow of the will, the impartiality of existence, the precision of inevitability. You are part of it, yet separate. You are observer and participant, fragile and eternal, in the same breath, brief and luminous, in the vast, indifferent continuum of reality. Another release arrives, more luminous now. Consider the self itself, its clinging, its striving, its constructions. They are all impermanent, fragile, transient. And in recognizing this, without resistance or denial, you touch the faint edge of detachment, the understanding that life is suffering, desire is unceasing, and yet you are awake. Awake to the machinery, awake to the pulse of existence, awake to the patterns of being without illusion, not triumph, not consolation, not escape, but lucid presence. Look at the human condition in this light. Every act, every thought, every pursuit, every attachment, every fleeting joy or sorrow, every ambition, every failure, every gesture of love or rage, all are part of the same unending rhythm. The machinery does not pause for anyone. And yet, the clarity of observation allows you to perceive it fully, to feel it in your bones, to recognize it in every breath. And in this recognition, a strange, quiet liberation arises. The ability to feel the world without clinging, to witness desire without being enslaved, to know suffering without denial. Pause again and feel the subtle exhalation of awareness. This is your fourth release, the delicate paradox of detachment. You do not escape suffering, you do not master desire, you do not conquer the machinery. You observe lucidly, intimately, patiently, and in observing, you touch the faint glimmer of transcendence. Not triumph, not salvation, not escape, but the serene clarity of seeing the world as it is. Consider now the passage of time, relentless and indifferent. Moments arrive and vanish, events unfold and collapse, civilizations rise and fall, stars blaze and fade, and through it all flows the unceasing machinery of existence. You are caught in it, yet in your awareness, you are briefly separate, lucid, present, not empowered, not free, not triumphant, but awake. And this awakening, fragile as a candle flame in the wind, is enough. Another release. The faint, patient acknowledgement that all striving, all desire, all attachment is temporary. To observe this truth without clinging is to touch a fragment of liberation. It is not joy, not relief, not consolation. It is lucidity, the recognition of reality stripped bare, precise and beautiful in its indifference. To inhabit this clarity is to know the machinery of existence intimately, to feel the pulse of the will in your own veins, to witness suffering without being consumed by it. The mind will continue its chatter, the self will continue its clinging, desire will continue its pulse, suffering will rise and fall. And yet, in the quiet moments between these events, in the spaces where nothing occurs yet everything is felt, you touch the edge of transcendence. Not escape, not salvation, not triumph, but serene, patient awareness. This is the subtle liberation that arises when you see the world clearly, when you witness the machinery without illusion, when you feel suffering without resistance. The machinery of life continues, indifferent, unyielding. Desire pulses, suffering rises and falls. The self clings and the mind invents stories. And yet, in observing without interference, you touch a fragment of clarity so sharp that it cuts through illusion, the recognition that all things are transient, all suffering is inevitable, all desire is unceasing, and yet you are awake, awake to the machinery, awake to the pulse of existence, awake to the patterns of life without distortion. You notice, if you dare, how fragile the self is. The I you carry, the identity you clutch, the story you repeat to yourself each, is a thin veneer over an abyss. Beneath it pulses the unrelenting will, the ceaseless motion that shapes everything yet acknowledges nothing. The self is not master here. It is a witness, a fragile lens through which the machinery of desire and suffering passes. And this witness trembles because it begins to see that the boundaries it trusted are illusions, that permanence is a lie whispered by instinct, that continuity is a fabrication of memory. Feel the tension of this realization, the ego's insistence on significance, the mind's desperate weaving of narrative, the heart's craving for attachment. All of it teeters. And yet, in this teetering, a curious freedom emerges. Not the loud, triumphant freedom promised by books or teachers, but the quiet, almost imperceptible awareness that clinging is optional. Not that the machinery pauses, it does not, but that your gaze can rest outside it, unentangled, lucid, precise. Here, the first release of this segment arrives. A gentle unburdening. You realize that the self is both necessary and irrelevant, fleeting and persistent, a construct that exists only because you feed it with attention. And the paradox is beautiful. The less you try to preserve it, the more acutely you perceive it. The machinery of life continues its relentless rhythm, yet in the act of observation, a sliver of detachment allows a momentary relief, a breath in the storm. Consider how desire works. Subtle, insidious, infinite. It presents itself as a flame to follow, yet it consumes without satisfaction. Every pursuit, every ambition, every attachment, no matter how trivial or profound, is fuel for the same relentless engine. And when you recognize this, when you feel the futility in your bones, there is a sharp release, a mingling of despair and clarity. To witness desire stripped of its illusions is to feel both the depth of suffering and the first faint whisper of liberation. The machinery does not pause. Pain rises, joy fades, hope flares and vanishes, attachment tightens and slips away. And yet, you begin to perceive the spaces between these pulses. In these intervals, the mind can rest, not in comfort, not in denial, but in clear awareness. The self does not disappear here, nor does it triumph. It simply exists with less insistence, less clamor. The machinery hums, and you are both within and outside it. Another release, the recognition that all meaning is constructed. Every value you hold, every belief you defend, every expectation you nurture is a delicate scaffold over a void. And yet, seeing the construction does not destroy you, it sharpens perception. The void does not consume, it clarifies. You begin to understand that liberation is not a state, not an achievement, not a reward. It is a subtle, patient lucidity that emerges when resistance softens, when clinging loosens, when the self admits its impermanence. Notice the rhythm of thought. Each idea, each judgment, each narrative rises like a wave and collapses with equal inevitability. The mind seeks to soothe, to justify, to hope, to predict. But when you observe without interference, you touch the faint edge of clarity. Thought is not you. Thought is a passing shadow across the surface of consciousness. The machinery moves, yet your gaze can remain steady, detached, precise. Pause in this moment. Let the mind's insistence quiet. Let the ego's grip loosen. The machinery will continue, indifferent, unyielding, relentless. Desire will pulse. Suffering will rise and fall. The self will cling and falter. And yet, in observing without interference, in inhabiting the quiet intervals between events, you touch a subtle liberation. Not comfort, not relief, not mastery, but lucidity itself. Another release comes, more luminous. Consider how transient everything is, how fleeting every thought, every emotion, every sensation. Stars burn and die, civilizations collapse, bodies decay, identities fade. And yet, awareness persists, fleeting but precise, fragile yet luminous. To inhabit this awareness without illusion is to feel the machinery of existence intimately, to see the self without distortion, to witness suffering without attachment. It is not triumph, it is clarity. You look at the world and see repetition, cycles of creation and destruction, of birth and decay, of joy and sorrow. Nothing pauses, nothing changes its rhythm for you, and yet awareness allows you to inhabit this reality fully. You are part of the rhythm, yet you observe it. The machinery moves, desire pulses, suffering arises, and you are awake to the impermanence, awake to the futility, awake to the pulse of existence, stripped of all illusion. The mind will protest. It will whisper of significance, of hope, of purpose. It will invent heroes, villains, causes, and meanings. But you have seen the machinery, you have felt the pulse of the will, you have touched the impermanence of self. And in this seeing, in this feeling, the mind's protests become faint, hollow echoes in a vast, indifferent continuum. You do not answer, you only perceive. Another release, the serene recognition that all striving is temporary, all attachment fragile, all desire unending. And yet, in perceiving this, a strange calm arises, not hope, not consolation, not joy, but a quiet clarity, a luminous awareness of existence in its raw, unvarnished state. To feel the machinery without being consumed by it is to inhabit a rare and subtle freedom, a freedom not of action but of perception. Now, feel the self begin to dissolve further, not violently, not painfully, but gradually, imperceptibly. Each attachment loosens, each expectation falters, each desire is seen for what it is. The machinery moves, relentless, indifferent, unceasing, yet your awareness has grown. You inhabit the intervals, you witness the pulses, you perceive the impermanence. The self is no longer a fortress, no longer a demand. It is a delicate lens through which you observe the machinery of existence. Another release, the quiet liberation of seeing the self as it truly is, a construct, fragile, impermanent, fleeting, yet luminous in its awareness. Not lost, not diminished, not triumphant, simply seen. And in this seeing, the machinery continues, desire pulses, suffering rises and falls, yet you are awake, lucid, precise, patient. Consider now the inevitability of death, the ultimate dissolution of self. Every pulse, every breath, every thought, every desire, every attachment leads to it. The machinery carries all toward it, relentlessly, impartially. And yet, in the face of this ultimate truth, there is clarity, not despair. The self, fragile and impermanent, can be seen fully, and the machinery, relentless and indifferent, can be observed with precision. Death is not to be feared. It is simply the next movement in the rhythm, another release. The recognition that impermanence is not cruelty, that suffering is not punishment, that desire is not flaw. They are the structure of existence, and in perceiving them without distortion, without attachment, without hope, you touch a subtle transcendence, not escape, not mastery, not triumph, but lucid awareness of life in its entirety. The machinery moves, desire pulses, suffering rises and falls, and yet you are awake to impermanence, awake to futility, awake to the self and its illusions, awake to the rhythm of existence stripped of all falsehood. This is the subtle liberation that emerges not from triumph, not from escape, not from hope, but from lucid perception itself. Another release, faint but luminous, the intervals between events, the hollow spaces of awareness, the fragile moments of clarity. Here you witness the machinery, the self, the will, the pulse of desire and suffering. You do not intervene, you do not resist, you do not cling, you perceive. And in perceiving, you touch a quiet, patient, luminous liberation. Not triumph, not comfort, not salvation, but lucid awareness, delicate as a candle flame in the dark, precise as the pulse of the universe itself. You feel it first as a subtle tightening in the chest, a pulse of recognition that the will is not merely personal but universal. It is not your desire alone, not your suffering alone, not your clinging alone. The machinery of existence pulses in all things, in the decay of leaves, in the relentless rise and fall of empires, in the quiet desperation of strangers you will never know. And in this recognition, the heart flinches, yet the intellect, unflinching, perceives with crystalline clarity. You are a node in a vast, indifferent lattice of striving. Pause here. Breathe the paradox. The same machinery that binds you to your petty satisfactions, your hollow ambitions, your futile joys, also binds the stars to their courses, the oceans to their tides, the planets to their orbits. All is motion, all is desire, all is suffering, and all is beauty, if beauty can be measured not in comfort, but in precision. The machinery's elegance is indifferent, pitiless, perfect. You do not curse it. You do not plead with it, you simply see. Here, a subtle emotional release ripples through the chest, a simultaneous despair and awe. The realization that nothing you do changes the rhythm, yet in observing the rhythm, you experience a rare clarity. The machinery moves as it must, desire pulses, suffering arises, and you, minute, fragile, transient, perceive. There is no consolation here, but there is lucidity. And lucidity is its own sharp relief, like a sudden wind in a stifling room. Let the mind stretch, let the soul expand, and feel the intensity rise. Every attachment you have ever known, every hope that flickered like a candle flame, every identity you have defended stripped bare, they are threads in a vast web of striving. The machinery does not pause, it does not yield. And yet, in this yieldingless motion, a faint exhilaration emerges. Not joy, not hope, not satisfaction, but the fierce, crystalline thrill of perceiving the universe exactly as it is, without veil, without illusion, without apology. You realize that the machinery's indifference is not cruelty, suffering is not punishment, desire is not a failing. They are the pulse of reality itself, and reality cares nothing for your comfort. And yet, in this recognition, the soul opens. It is as if every moment of suffering, every heartbeat of longing, every tremor of attachment was merely a chord leading to this crescendo, a single, sharp, exhilarating note of awareness that pierces the veil of illusion. A release blooms in your chest, widening through your being. You perceive, and in perceiving, you touch the machinery in its entirety. The self, once solid, once insistent, once clinging to narrative and identity, begins to dissolve. You are not lost, you are not diminished. You are simply a lens through which the machinery passes, a conduit for the universal pulse of desire and suffering. And in this dissolution, a strange, luminous intensity arises, fierce and precise, a pulse of consciousness untempered by hope, unsoftened by denial. Now, consider the paradox that burns brighter. The machinery is relentless, and yet your awareness grows in the same measure. The more you perceive the futility, the more lucid you become. The more you witness suffering and desire without interference, the more sharply you inhabit the intervals of consciousness. The machinery does not bend to your will, yet, in observing it without distortion, you touch a rare, almost unbearable clarity. Another wave rises. Imagine the pulse of all life, all thought, all striving, condensed into a single, unbroken continuum. Each human act, each flicker of ambition, each quiver of attachment, each whisper of fear all converge into a rhythm you now perceive in totality. The machinery does not pause, it does not falter, it does not question, it simply moves. And you, fragile observer, feel the intensity of its motion vibrating through your consciousness like the tolling of an infinite bell. Here, allow a subtle release. Despair and awe intertwine, not as contradiction, but as dual notes of the same chord. To feel the machinery in all its indifferent grandeur is terrifying and liberating at once. Every pulse of suffering, every surge of desire, every flicker of joy or hope is a manifestation of the will that refuses rest, that refuses satisfaction, that refuses illusion. And yet, in this refusal, there is clarity. The self's clinging falls away. And in its absence, awareness sharpens to a luminous, unyielding precision. The crescendo continues, slow and inexorable. Your identity thins, your attachments tremble, your desires are stripped to their raw, unyielding form, pulses of the will, irreducible, infinite. And in this stripping, the soul opens to a rare intensity. You feel the machinery not as observer only, but as participant in the vast, indifferent symphony of existence. You do not resist, you do not flee, you do not cling, you perceive. And the perception itself becomes the apex of intensity, sharper than any joy, more searing than any grief. Pause here in the crescendo. Recognize the sublime terror of impermanence, the exquisite futility of desire, the relentless pulse of suffering, and the luminous clarity of awareness. Each breath, each heartbeat, each flicker of thought is a thread in the unbroken tapestry of existence. And you, observer and participant both, feel the intensity of its totality. Another wave rises, carrying the crescendo higher. The machinery is universal, the will infinite, the self ephemeral, and yet awareness persists. Awareness stretches across suffering and desire, across birth and decay, across hope and disappointment. Awareness does not seek escape. Awareness does not cling to illusion. Awareness is precise, patient, luminous. It pierces the veil. It does not tremble. It does not falter. It sees everything and asks nothing. Now, let the emotional intensity reach its apex. The pulse of the universe, the machinery of desire, the inevitability of suffering, all converge into a single radiant note. You are awake. Not triumphant, not consoled, not joyous. Awake to the machinery, awake to the will, awake to suffering, awake to impermanence. Awake to yourself, not as fortress, not as illusion, not as comfort, but as fragile, luminous conduit of perception, stretching across the unbroken rhythm of existence. Here, the release is absolute. Despair and awe, futility and clarity, suffering and lucidity all dissolve into awareness. You are not separate from the machinery. You are not master. You are not victim. You are observer and pulse and lens. And in this convergence, the crescendo transforms into a silent, radiant expanse, pure perception, precise, unyielding, incandescent in its lucidity. You feel the pulse now as a totality, the machinery of desire, the relentless current of suffering, the impermanence of all things. They converge into a single, undulating rhythm, and you are neither separate nor fused, neither elevated nor diminished. You simply are the tremor of perception flowing across the infinite. The self, which once clamored so insistently for meaning and security, is now a faint echo in the vast chamber of awareness, recognized and let go, neither mourned nor clutched. Every attachment, every hope, every illusion dissolves into the clarity of seeing. The will pulses still, indifferent, unyielding, eternal, and yet you perceive it without disturbance. There is no need for mastery, no need for rebellion, no need for escape. You do not fight, and you do not cling. You witness the machinery with the precision of a lantern tracing the outlines of shadows across the walls of a deserted cathedral, each pulse of light revealing the intricate, indifferent elegance of existence. A subtle relief arises, as if the body itself exhales after a lifetime of holding its breath. The machinery continues, as it must, and yet, in this breathing space, you recognize the peculiar freedom of lucidity. The mind, the heart, the self, all have loosened their grip. Desire may surge, suffering may rise, yet there is no turbulence here, only the rhythmic acknowledgement of truth. You are awake, aware, precise, and in this awareness, time stretches and thins. Past and future are revealed, as illusions spun by memory and anticipation. Only the pulse of existence remains, relentless, indifferent, luminous. You float in this pulse, not as a participant seeking gain, not as a victim seeking escape, but as a witness, as perception itself, tracing the infinite motion of life. Another release ripples, subtle yet profound. You perceive that everything you have loved, feared, and desired is both necessary and irrelevant. The will manifests in infinite forms, yet no form persists. You feel the futility of clinging and the inevitability of suffering, and in this recognition, a quiet exhilaration blooms fierce, luminous, uncompromising. To see the machinery fully, without distortion or resistance, is to taste a rare intensity of consciousness, a clarity sharper than joy, colder than grief, purer than hope. The machinery pulses, desire rises, suffering flows, and you, suspended in lucid awareness, inhabit the intervals, the silent spaces where the machinery cannot intrude. Here, the self is both present and absent, delicate, ephemeral, and radiant. You do not question, you do not plead, you do not interfere, you perceive. And in perceiving, you touch the rarest freedom, the freedom of lucid surrender, precise as the chime of a bell vibrating across a vast, empty expanse. The rhythm swells. The machinery, the will, the infinite pulse of existence, they converge in a crescendo of perception that is both terrifying and sublime. You are aware of everything and nothing, of the totality and of the spaces in between, where the machinery cannot reach. The self dissolves further, leaving only the lens of perception, shining, fragile, unbound. Another release. The recognition that death, decay, and impermanence are not adversaries, but the necessary rhythm of the pulse. To perceive the inevitability of ending is not despair, it is clarity. The machinery does not pause, the will does not rest, and yet you perceive without disturbance, without fear, without hope, awareness itself, becomes the luminous core, tracing the motion of desire and suffering with unflinching precision. And now, the crescendo softens into a profound, radiant quiet. The machinery continues its unbroken motion, yet your awareness has become an unshaken stillness within it. You inhabit the pulse of existence without claim, without expectation, without illusion. The self is gone, yet its echo remains as delicate perception, trembling like a candle flame in the vast darkness, precise and luminous. In this final space, the intensity of realization ripples through every fiber, every struggle, every attachment, every sorrow, every joy, every fleeting desire. They were threads in the vast, unending fabric of the will. And yet, in observing without interference, you have touched a rare transcendence, a silence that is neither comfort nor despair, neither life nor death, but the luminous rhythm of being itself. The machinery pulses, unrelenting, eternal. Desire rises and falls, suffering surges and ebbs, time stretches and thins. And you, now a quiet lens of awareness, trace the infinite motion, neither caught nor resistant, neither lost nor triumphant. The self, the ego, the clinging illusions, they have dissolved into the clarity of perception. The final release comes as a gentle expansion, a vast, unbroken awareness stretching across all things, intimate yet impersonal, precise yet infinite. You perceive the will, the machinery, the pulse of existence in all its indifferent elegance. And in this perception, there is no finality, no answer, no triumph, only the luminous, unflinching reality of what is. And now the image remains, a candle flame flickering in an empty cathedral, tracing shadows across walls that will crumble, floorboards that will decay, and yet the light continues, precise and delicate, illuminating the pulse of existence for a fleeting moment before it too vanishes. The machinery hums on, desire pulses, suffering flows, and you are suspended in lucid awareness, tracing the infinite rhythm with a calm, radiant intensity. You are awake, you are aware, you are precise. You are neither lost nor found. The pulse continues, unbroken, eternal, and the flame, delicate and luminous, trembles and disappears, leaving only the silent, infinite rhythm of existence.